Once again, Slick and Shiny tongue-in-cheek productions stumbles our way through a maze of digital nonsense to give you another look at Yukon, Pennsylvania. Enjoy. That's the old hoist house. And notice how it was built on an outcropping of rock. That rock extends right into here. And you'll see the inside, and you'll see how that rock gives a very stable footing to the mounting for the hoist that was in there. This was on the top of that building, Westmoreland Coal Company, 1908. Westmoreland Coal was around for a long time. They began in the 1850s, and one of the original board members was a guy named James Magee, and Magee Mine was named after him, even though he was dead for quite a few years by the time Magee started up in 1908. This is the hoist building from another view, giving a three-quarter view. This little addition here on the back, made out of brick, is something you'll see from the inside. This is that brick addition. That was on there as a place to allow entry for and to control the electricity that ran the hoist. Those hoists used a lot of juice, and they had to have, good heavy controls to control that situation. Now this is a context shot showing the way things were when the hoist house was in operation. This is the hoist house, and right beside it was the tipple, which is now gone, and over here was the boiler house and the power generating station. We'll see a view of that too. That's another view of the inside of the hoist house. And in addition to getting some information about Adrienne, we also get to see something about the roof, the ceiling. The roof was held up by what was called fink trusses. They were metal trusses, and there was once a slate roof on top of it. That also shows the inside, getting a little bit down to what was the basement level down in here. And here you see these big bolts that held the hoist motor in place. And now we're going to see another view of it. This was in the 90s when this picture was taken, the early 90s. Jet Lowe did the picture. He's somebody I actually met. He was a photographer for the National Park Service. And you see these big bolts sticking up. They held the hoist in place. It was a really heavy-duty machine. This is a hoist motor here. This was the hoist for the mine at St. Vincent Shaft. I did this drawing when I was a 19-year-old kid some years ago. And this shows the relationship of part to part here at the mine. This was the hoist building, and it had cables going up to the mine, and they went past the machine shop, and we're going to get a look at that too. This, I can't help looking at this without thinking of some of the old ruins in Europe, some of the old ruins of old castles, cathedrals, and all interesting old buildings One of the reasons I can't help thinking about nominating this to the National Register as a historic district. Probably somebody in Yukon might get a good idea and start that nomination process. Wouldn't hurt. But that's not my affair. It's just an idea. This helps to show the character of the stonework. A lot of good work was done. Not only was it historically significant because of its connection with the mining industry, but also because of the mine buildings themselves, which were, you don't see any other mine buildings in the whole region that were like this. These things were really, really different and very nice. Another view from the side. And I also want to thank Mike Mance, who did these shots. Coke Oven Mike. Thank you, Mike. This is the machine shop in context when it was working. This right here. Right along the tramway coming up from the building that we saw, the building that housed the hoist motor, coming up to the mine entrance. And you see over here the office, and then over here was the powerhouse, which we'll also get a look at. This was one of the trolley locomotives that was used at Yukon in the mine. This is one of the things that they would have had to fix at the machine shop when it got out of order. There were a number of these used, and there were also horses and mules used in the mine for hauling cars around in the mine. And again, this is what we were looking at, the machine shop. This was the office, which we also saw a glimpse of. And we're going to move down here. This was the boiler house, and then in the back part was the place where electricity was made. It had steam engines and generators in there, which they called dynamos at that point. That's the front view of the boiler house. And you'll notice various features. This is a place that's had been filled in with cement block. There was a conveyor that brought coal for those hungry boilers in there that needed a lot of coal. And this blackness here shows the debris waste runoff from the time when they were, bringing coal in there. This over here too, I want to point out. This was a bit of original stonework, kind of decoration kind of thing. That shows it in detail. They had very good masons working on this project. Westmoreland Coal really didn't spare any expense, it seemed. They must have known that they were on a good seam of coal. It was the Pittsburgh seam of coal that they were working. And a lot of the mines, ran out after 10 or 15 years. And this mine ran for nearly 50 years. Now that's inside. Looking at the same wall from inside, you can see that area that's been blocked in where the coal came into the boiler house, and you can see coal debris having been run down the walls. And in this area in here were big boilers that made steam for electricity and probably for heat too in the various buildings there. Now that's the back of the boiler house, powerhouse operation. This area in the back is where they had the steam engines and generators in there. I might mention that the buildings were used after the place shut down as a mine in the 50s. The place was used as a combination auto repair and junk shop, or rather, junkyard, where you worked on cars and dismantled cars. So a lot of things happened here. This is a view toward the inside of the power generating area. And that is the inside where electricity was made for the mine. You see the outside. All these little details that make it a more interesting building. And we see, this is what we were looking at. This was the tipple where coal was put so it could be loaded onto the railroad. And here is the tramway where it went in to the boiler house. And maybe we'll see that tipple. Here we are. That's the tipple we were looking at from above in the mapping view. And that's the boiler house over there when it was working. And the powerhouse in back. And the hoist house. It was a very complex operation. And that shows Yukon. And over here, this was the mine. It shows the relationship, how the mine related to the town. This was one of the slag dumps, the waste material taken out. And we've said enough now this time. We'll do another one, at least one more, or maybe a couple more on Yukon. I'm not certain yet. But we will see you again for another look at Yukon. Probably the next time I'll get into the town itself. So long for now.